Trump defends Chinese Muslims? Why the Pentagon fears Chinese drones? And China's air pollution can be deadly. This is China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This week's China News headlines. Navy SEALs are some of the toughest guys in the world, and retired Admiral William McRaven is probably one of the top. He oversaw the raid that got Osama bin Laden in 2011. So, when something scares Admiral McRaven, you should be terrified. Well, at a Council on Foreign Relations meeting this week, McRaven said China and the Chinese Communist Party's military is catching up and in some cases surpassing the US. It's what he called a holy something. I'm not sure what, since someone seems to have lost part of the word. But it's a serious moment for the US. The Chinese Communist Party is closing the gap with the US on the technological battlefront. According to a new report by the Council on Foreign Relations, even though China is not a match for the US across the board, China could soon rival the US in fields like AI, robotics, 5G, and possibly biotechnology. Biotechnology? I think I know where this is headed. When they say president for life, they mean it. And in that vein, an ad for Beijing's 301st Hospital, the top-rated hospital in China, where all the communist leaders go, say they're working on a health project that will help leaders live to 150. The ad, which was taken down after a public backlash in China, bragged about organ function regeneration. It's a new technology where they give healthy organs to rich people by taking them from Chinese dissidents who don't need them anymore. Donald Trump, defender of the world's Muslims. Yeah, that's not a mistake. The Trump administration is planning to confront China at a UN meeting next week over the Communist Party's persecution of the mostly Muslim Uyghur ethnic minority. Okay, so Trump himself won't be doing it, but definitely the people he's appointed will. And this won't be new for the Trump administration. Vice President Mike Pence has specifically called out the internment camps in China where more than 1 million Chinese Muslims endure around-the-clock brainwashing. And yet, no matter how much Chinese authorities try to whitewash the issue, according to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, the persecution of Uyghurs is the stain of the century, as opposed to the stain of last century, which involved Bill Clinton getting China into the WTO. Getting the UN to move against China's wishes is not easy. China holds a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. That gives it tremendous potential veto power. This week, however, the UN overcame that veto threat to renew a UN political mission in Afghanistan. China was upset there was no mention of the Belt and Road Initiative. That's China's giant global infrastructure investment plan that basically gives China tremendous political influence over whichever country it invests in. And for the past 3 years, the UN Afghanistan mission basically sang the praises of the Belt and Road. Coincidentally, that also coincides with China expanding its footprint in Afghanistan. Officially, the relationship is for mineral and energy exploration, but also there's military cooperation. So no wonder other UN Council members wanted to take the Belt and Road out of the UN's political mission in Afghanistan. A speech last week from a US State Department official called out Chinese tech giants for being de facto tools of the Chinese Communist Party. Christopher Ford, the Assistant Secretary of State for International Security and Non-Proliferation, said the Chinese technology giants are not purely private actors, but instead function as at least de facto tools of the Chinese Communist Party when it matters most. He specifically mentioned Baidu, Alibaba, Huawei, ZTE, and Tencent. The Chinese Communist Party has created new laws to aid what they call civil-military fusion. That basically forces even privately owned Chinese companies to cooperate with the government and party. Firms such as Huawei, Tencent, ZTE, Alibaba, and Baidu have no meaningful ability to tell the Chinese Communist Party no if officials decide to ask for their assistance. So much for no means no. Huawei is also running into more and more problems as countries around the world begin full or partial bans on Huawei equipment, usually over national security concerns. The latest country is Estonia, located right there. Sure, there. Estonia is restricting government use of Huawei over national security concerns. A Chinese couple has been accused of stealing trade secrets from a US children's hospital. Authorities say the couple set up their own company in China using stolen treatments for things like child liver cancer. Nothing like profiting off the misery of children, just like mall Santas. Bad news for Taiwan. China has managed to poach yet another one of the few remaining countries that recognize the island nation, the Solomon Islands. Now, there are only 16 countries left that still have official diplomatic ties with Taiwan. Now, the U.S. is reconsidering aid to Solomon Islands. And according to Reuters, Mike Pence has called off a meeting with the country's prime minister. Not that the U.S. officially recognizes Taiwan either, but the U.S. does sell weapons to Taiwan. Lots of weapons. And at the end of the day, isn't that the truest form of recognition? Behold, the Lotus Tower, the tallest building in Sri Lanka. Truly a magnificent sight. Also magnificent, how the Chinese state-owned contractor that built it managed to steal $11 million of Sri Lankan state money through graft. That's at least according to the current Sri Lankan president. He blames the previous president who was in power when the theft allegedly occurred. Of course, that previous president called the accusation a horrendous insult to China. Yeah, how dare people ask where the money went? And if you're wondering, didn't the Communist Party ever learn that stealing was wrong? Well, obviously the answer is no. But now we know why. According to Fox News, the Communist Party has been replacing the 10 Commandments with quotes from Chinese leader Xi Jinping. It's no longer just the good book, it's the party-mandated book. And stay tuned after the break, because there's another Chinese technology the Pentagon is terrified of: drones. Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. As if China's military buildup in the South China Sea and its constant threats over Taiwan weren't enough to worry about, the Pentagon now has a new cause for concern. No, not giant military cats, although those are concerning. No, I'm talking about the U.S. military's reliance on Chinese drones. The idea is for small units on the battlefield, that you have small drones that soldiers can quickly unpack and get in the air, says Michael Horowitz, a University of Pennsylvania professor. These quadcopters are also inexpensive enough that if one crashes or you lose one, it's not that big a deal. The drones we're talking about here are a type of small unmanned aerial system, or UAS. This kind. They're used by the U.S. military mostly for reconnaissance missions. But even little drones can be lethal.
All it takes is literally something as simple as this. Okay, right here is a device that is built to drop a payload. So this actually hooks on to the sides of this underneath, and this closes. And all you have to do, something for less than $100, is literally put it on the bottom of this, and it allows you to trigger a mechanism that can release a payload. It can kill somebody, but it's not at the lethality that it's like a Hellfire missile would have.
But the Pentagon is not so much worried about the Chinese military sending a swarm of drones over to attack the U.S. mainland, since Amazon's already got that covered. No, the Pentagon is worried about the Chinese-made drones that the U.S. government has been buying of its own free will. Specifically, this Chinese technology could potentially have built-in security flaws, designed to give the Chinese military an advantage in case of conflict. For example, a secret piece of code that would send sensitive information to China. According to this 2017 memo, the Department of Defense ordered troops to stop using drones made by the Chinese company DJI because of increased awareness of cyber vulnerabilities. According to the memo, DJI was at the time one of the most widely used brands of drones by the U.S. Army. Citing a classified report into DJI UAS technology threat and user vulnerabilities, the Army ordered troops to cease all use, uninstall all DJI applications, remove all batteries/storage media from devices, and secure the equipment. The Pentagon didn't reveal the specifics of the national security threat, and at the time, a DJI company spokesman complained to the BBC that the U.S. Army has not explained why it suddenly banned the use of DJI drones and components, what cyber vulnerabilities it is concerned about. Somehow, I don't think the cyber vulnerability was that the drones had too many feelings. But to illustrate the problem, in 2017, DJI's Phantom series of unmanned aerial vehicles drew the attention of hackers who've been able to break into and manipulate the drone's GPS software, punching holes in the geofences that sought to keep the drones out of no-fly zones. Obviously, that hack was not good PR for DJI. So in early 2019, DJI released this video promoting its new line of drones designed for government use.
DJI has developed a new hardware and software solution that allows government agencies to confidently use drone technology while keeping in accordance with stringent IT and data security requirements. We call it Dji Government Edition.
I mean, it's essentially the same drone technology, but now with bigger promises.
It actually allows us to tell our clients that all of their telemetry data, meaning where the drone is flying, is stored securely and not shared with anyone but them.
I mean, if DJI got a guy in a Patagonia vest to say it, it must be true. Even if that guy is the CEO of a company that stands to make millions off helping government agencies implement DJI drones. That video, which is targeted at no government in particular, does aim to address one of the specific concerns that the US government just happens to have. If the US military personnel on covert missions are using DJI drones in secret locations, those missions could be compromised by something as simple as leaked flight logs, or shutting down a drone in mid-flight. There are US special operators in Syria using DJI products, the CEO of Expert Drones told the publication Defense One. So I get it. I'm glad the Army is finally doing something about this. Because given the growing clarity that China is, in fact, America's chief strategic adversary, being hooked on technology that's made in China may be, well, unstrategic. And there are fears that the Chinese regime is secretly installing backdoors in commercial technology for potential military advantage. And it certainly wouldn't be the first time the Chinese regime has been accused of using seemingly innocuous commercial technology to gain a potential advantage. Huawei. Sorry, I meant Huawei. The company that makes knockoff iPhones and 5G technology. The Pentagon's national security concerns about Chinese-made drones were echoed by the Department of Homeland Security in May this year, which is several months after DJI made that video promising the government edition of their drones is totally secure. There's nothing to worry about. In a notice titled Chinese-Manufactured Unmanned Aircraft Systems, Homeland Security warned that U.S. officials have strong concerns about any technology product that takes American data into the territory of an authoritarian state that permits its intelligence services to have unfettered access to that data or otherwise abuses that access. That being said, it appears the U.S. government has given security clearance to the government edition of DJI. And that's probably because there just aren't good alternatives made in America. The U.S. doesn't have much of a small unmanned aerial system industrial base because DJI dumped so many low-priced quadcopters on the market, and we then became dependent on them, said Ellen Lord, the Pentagon's chief weapons buyer, in a recent press conference. So how can the U.S. wean itself off dependence on Chinese drones? By diving headlong into the world of American tech startups. This fall, the Defense Department is launching something called a Trusted Capital Marketplace to connect investors with small tech firms to boost domestic production of small drones, a kind of Shark Tank, where even the Pentagon itself can be one of the sharks, although the Pentagon will never be as intimidating as Mark Cuban.
Mark, what are you doing?
But if you need $1 million to launch your project of a tiny drone that shoots massive Hellfire missiles, the Pentagon can't wait to hear your pitch. After all, once they have the drone problem solved, they can focus on the real threat and turn it to their advantage. And after this commercial break, a look at the 10 most air-polluted cities in China. Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. In a lot of places in the world, air pollution has reached dangerously high levels. According to the World Health Organization, 91% of the world's population is exposed to levels of air pollution that are harmful. Good thing I live in New York City, where we actually don't have much of an air pollution problem. Of course, we have water pollution, and noise pollution, and rat pollution. But the air here is pretty good. But in China, there are a lot of cities where the air quality is so bad, it's deadly. In fact, air pollution claims an estimated 1.8 million lives in China each year. According to the most recent data from Air Visual, a crowdsourced air quality insight platform, China has the worst air in East Asia. China has 53 major cities where the average air quality is considered unhealthy by WHO guidelines. That is, where the air quality index is above 150. But not every city can be a winner. So on this episode, we'll take a look only at the top 10 most air polluted cities in China. Number 10. Wujiaqiu. Wujiaqiu is a tiny city of just 100,000 people in the northern part of Xinjiang. That's China's western region that's home to mainly a Turkic ethnic minority known as the Uyghurs. It's also home to some of that delightful Soviet-style architecture. It's also home to some pretty bad air pollution, 157 on the air quality index, which the WHO dubs unhealthy. But during winter months, it can be as high as 250, which is a lot more unhealthy. Wujiaqiu also happens to be less than 100 miles from the least fun place in Xinjiang, this re-education camp in Dabancheng. In concentration camps like this across Xinjiang, more than 1 million Uyghurs are being detained by the Chinese Communist Party. So on the plus side, air quality is not their number one concern. Number 9. Linfen. Linfen is in China's Shanxi province. Today, Linfen is only a moderately polluted city. But a decade ago, it was known as the world's most polluted city. However, today, with an average 2018 air quality index of 158, residents now report being able to see the sun. Sometimes. What makes the air in Linfen so bad? They love coal. They love to truck it, they love to shovel it, and they love to burn it. Just nobody really likes to breathe it. Number 8. Baoding. Baoding is in China's Hebei province. With a population of around 11 million, it's a medium-sized city for China. Its air quality index comes in at 159. China is the biggest energy consumer in the world, and its main source of electricity is coal. Burn too much of that, though, and the air turns black as soot. Makes for nice sunsets, though. Number 7. Anyang. Anyang is a city of around 5 million in Henan province. It made headlines in February when it won China's unofficial contest for most polluted city of the month. Congratulations! At one point during the month, the air quality index in Anyang reached more than 500. How much more? We don't know, because the indexing stops at 500. It was literally off the charts. Besides astronomical air pollution, Anyang's other claim to fame is ancient archaeological digs. It's the burial place of the legendary Chinese general Cao Cao, whom you might know from the book Romance of the Three Kingdoms. No? Okay, how about from the game Total War Three Kingdoms? That's what I thought. Number 6. Handan. Located in China's northern Hebei province, Handan is known as the birthplace of Yang-style Tai Chi. Though with an air quality index of 161, you might want to put on a mask before you go out to practice. On some days, the smog is so bad it swallows buildings. One solution they've come up with is this giant cannon. It was designed to blast out a mist of water to fight smog and clean the air. Didn't do much for smog, but sure looks fun. Number 5. Aksu. Aksu doesn't sound like a very Chinese name because it's not. It's another Uyghur city in China's Xinjiang, totally not autonomous region. With an average 2018 air quality index of 161, Aksu is no place to breathe deep. It's also no place to get a whiff of freedom. In Aksu, the authorities are forcing local Uyghur people to register any tools that could potentially be used as weapons, like kitchen knives. It's so that the owner can be traced in the event of a crime. Unless the crime is committed by a member of China's military police, in which case, it wasn't a crime. It was a security measure. Number 4. Shijiazhuang. Shijiazhuang is the capital of Hebei province. It's about 160 miles southwest of Beijing. It's a busy industrial base, especially for steel and chemical production. Last year's figure put the air quality index there at 162. Shi Jiazhuang made headlines 5 years ago when a resident became the first person in China to sue the government over dangerously high levels of smog. Plaintiff Li Guixin sued the local government for about $1,500. It was to compensate for what he spent to counter the effects of pollution, including buying face masks and an air purifier. Li told the BBC, "The reason that I'm proposing administrative compensation is to let every citizen see that amid this haze, we're the real victims." Did he win his lawsuit against Chinese authorities? I'll let you guess. Number 3. Qingtai. Qingtai is another city in Hebei province and also a major center for China's steel industry, and that's fueled by smoky coal. It's currently in 3rd place among Chinese cities, with an air quality level of 162. A bronze medal ranking is nothing to sneeze at, but there was once a time Qingtai won gold in the contest for China's most polluted city. A study published in 2013 suggested that an arbitrary Chinese policy had massively increased air pollution, causing 500 million residents of northern China to lose more than 2.5 billion life years of life expectancy. That arbitrary policy is the Huai River policy. Since the 1950s, it's provided subsidized coal for indoor heating. Yes, cheap coal for the masses. Another well-thought-out central policy with absolutely no downside. Number 2. Kashgar. Kashgar is often considered the cultural heart of Xinjiang, but not the cultural lungs. In 2018, Kashgar had an air quality index of 172. Back in 2016, Kashgar made headlines for briefly achieving the top spot on China's most polluted cities list. Now, it's making headlines as a place where the Chinese Communist Party has taken to closing and bulldozing mosques in its fight against religion. Nothing says Allah is number one like worshipping the atheist Chinese Communist Party. Don't worry, a lot of the mosques in Kashgar are getting torn down to make way for the things the locals really want, like shopping malls. If you build it, they will come, right? Maybe not. And the number 1 most air-polluted city in China, Hotan. Hotan is also a city in Xinjiang, and it's located within the giant Taklamakan Desert. Hotan's average air quality index last year was 182, with a spike in April of 358. But what makes Hotan's air so bad is not just regular air pollution caused by heavy industry. It's also the frequent sandstorms. As the storms kick up sand, the air pollution readings can go up dramatically. You know what else kicks up sand? The construction of concentration camps where the Chinese regime is locking up Uyghurs. Have I mentioned the concentration camps? Look how happy everyone there is, listening to speeches while being protected by barbed wire fences and armed guards. Honestly, sandstorms don't seem that bad by comparison. Now, if the air pollution in China seems pretty bad, well, it is. Although according to official data, China is not as bad as India, which seems to have outpolluted China in recent years. But that's the problem. China's official data. Even state-run media has had to admit that a lot of the environmental data is being faked as local officials try to make their cities look better. This is not a one-off thing. As of last year, more than 1,000 officials have been punished for failing to fulfill their environmental protection duties after a nationwide comprehensive environmental inspection. For example, in Linfen, the Chinese city ranked number 9, former bureau chief Jiang Wenqing and 11 others were found to have altered air quality monitoring data during days of heavy pollution. The monitoring machine was blocked and sprayed with water to improve the data, and Jiang was also found to have paid another person to make sure the sabotage was not captured by surveillance camera. Seriously? There are some things you just can't cover up. Specifically, the things that cover everything else up. And that's it for this week's China Uncensored. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.